Hello, guys, and welcome back to the. Wait a minute. Welcome back? No, that ain't right. No, welcome to a completely new show. Yes. Today we are here for the first episode of the Joining Me Again podcast. What do you mean I'm not creative? What do you mean that's a rubbish name? What do you mean you're gonna go get my dog? It's a bit extreme. But anyway, welcome to the first episode of the Joining Me Again podcast. I announced this in my sort of new era announcement video that I did a couple of months ago and stuff like that. Now, I said I was going to introduce this new show and stuff like that called the Joining Me Again podcast. And the premise of the show is basically about catching up with old guests. It's about inviting guests that have been on the show previously and stuff, and yeah, having a catch up, sort of seeing what they've done since we last sort of saw them, sort of joking about sort of the first episode I did with that guest or guests and whatever. And yeah, it's just a sort of an opportunity to really appreciate and stuff the guests and stuff like that of the Joining Me Today podcast main show. All my guests mean a lot to me when they come on the show, and I want this show to kind of be an appreciation, a celebration of that, if you will. And I've got a fantastic first guest for that podcast. But before we get into it, we've got to do the song recommendation. But this is a completely new show, so not everything's going to be the same. Instead of doing my usual naming sort of any song that I've been listening to, like I said, this show's all about appreciating past guests. So for the song recommendations for this show and stuff like that, and we're also going to keep it to just me doing song recommendations on this one, I'm going to be recommending songs from previous guests. And the first song that I'm going to sort of recommend, and stuff in this first episode of a previous guest, is the song called The Kids Are Not All Right by Generation Feral. I had her on for my 19th episode and stuff like that. It's one of my favorite episodes of all time. It's fantastic and stuff like that. I loved having sort of Izzy on and stuff like that. She's an incredibly talented artist. She's absolutely hilarious. And that song, The Kids Are Not All Right, is really incredible for a sort of an artist and stuff like that of her level, of her size, to be producing a song like that is fantastic. And to be honest, I'd say it's better than the Jimmy Eat World sort of take on that sort of song and stuff. Like, I really think it is, if you guys have ever listened to that one. So you guys should definitely go check that out. But anyway, now onto the main portion of the podcast, of this episode of the podcast. I'm going to be joined by the guy I had on for episode 15 of the show. He's an actor, he's a comedian, he's a writer, he's one of the funniest people and stuff like that out there that I've seen, I've had on my show. And so I'm so happy to have him back on the show. Welcome back to the Joining Me Today podcast sphere, Dave Bibby. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. Good to see you again. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it's great having you back. Great having you back and stuff. I've got to mention it because I have seen it. I noticed that you still got the Luton flag and you still got the Jurgen Klopp mask in the background.
I know. I like you'd think that it's a constantly changing room, but like I come home with something and I put it on the bookcase or whatever, and it just stays there, and it makes you realise that I don't really move stuff around that much in my office. There's a couple of new pictures the other side of camera, but otherwise pretty much all the same since I saw you last, I think.
It's like you green screened yourself from the previous episode into this. Like that's the green screen.
Yeah. Well, a couple of weeks ago, my when dinosaurs ruled the earth banner fell down. So that was from my baby dinosaur show. That fell down, but that's back up now. I've got some more sticky bits. But yeah, sometimes Klopp falls down. And what I should do is just put him in the bin now. That's done. That was a job I did for Eurovision, but he just goes straight back up there, even though we've got Arne Slot. Klopp's still there in the bookcase.
Wait a minute. You did a job for Eurovision? As a fan of Eurovision, I've got to ask, what's all that about then? I've got to know.
So, well, that one, the reason I've got the clock mask is, yeah. So just before the city of Liverpool hosted Eurovision, I think they did it on behalf of Ukraine, weren't they? So all the hotels in the area got together as like a bit of a warm up because they're going to have all people from around the world. And we did an event where it was like a Eurovision themed thing for all the staff of these hotels. And we did like live updates throughout the night. We made it like a competition type thing, and I played a reporter from every single different like country, all these bad accents and stuff. And my German was just me being Jurgen Klopp because he was Liverpool manager, and that was like, well, how can I do a German accent? I was just like, I'll put a face mask of Jurgen Klopp on and do a bad impression. So that's what I was doing there, which
And you
sums
had
up my life really.
And it's going to be the situation as well, because I've had it on this podcast before where your instinct as well is to put on a British accent, even though you're
Yeah,
British.
yeah. Exactly that. So like, what is this character? And you're like, can just be you. Yeah, that one's okay. That one's done.
To think you've done some sort of Eurovision related work as a fan of Eurovision myself and stuff. I massively appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like, I wish it was Eurovision now, man. I really do love it and stuff. I do love it. But
Oh, I love that. We didn't talk about Eurovision at all last time, did we? I
uh,
don't know much about Eurovision really. I'm not. I watch it like every now and then, but it sounds like you're a much bigger fan than me. I need to learn from you about
well,
the
well,
history of Eurovision.
the thing is, there's a feeling of like I think people still see it in that sort of Jedward mindset of like it's acts like that and it's all silly.
Uh-huh.
There's a couple that are like that, but I think it's now. I think once acts started getting real money for like their songs,
Yeah,
I think of
yeah,
bands like if people have watched Eurovision or not, even if you haven't, bands like Skin, sort of artists like I think Rosalind was her name and stuff. These artists got into the main pop charts and everything with their
yeah,
Eurovision songs or their other related songs. So I think a lot of record labels and all that they took notice and went, hang on,
yeah,
like this stuff is getting into the mainstream. Like we can't
yeah.
not like capitalize on this. So I think that that caused it to go, nah, do proper stuff. And now
Yeah,
sort
it's a
of
great
songs and stuff are
platform
great.
for proper artists, isn't it? Like you can launch your career there. I mean, literally millions of people watch it across the continent and Australia. So yeah, why not take it seriously? I guess. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. And sort of it now makes me think, what about the Edinburgh Fringe, but a Eurovision version?
Oh, that would be good.
Like a
That would be
comedy sort of
great.
Euros, you see what I mean?
Yeah, that would be amazing. That would be great. That would be brilliant, and everyone can vote for other comedy countries and say who was great this year and things like that. That would be cool.
And we'd still end up getting 0 points. But anyway.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Would we have to separate England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, or would we come together? That would be a
Uh,
big question.
I think you got to join forces, I think, because we're
Yeah.
so bad, we need all the help we can get. It's like tennis with Andy Murray. We had to like be like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we like British tennis
Yeah,
because we had to capitalize
exactly.
on how good he was.
Yeah, exactly. We've had great success in recent times with British tennis players. Well, yeah, Scottish guy, and that counts, doesn't it? Yeah.
But actually, speaking of Edinburgh, like the Edinburgh Fringe and all stuff like that, speaking funny enough of your Baby Dinosaur show and stuff like that,
Mm.
sort of since we last spoke and stuff, I know you've done a few sort of shows in person in terms of, not in person, but in terms of like you've gone to different theatres, whatever. It's not just limited
Yeah.
at the sort of festival. And I feel like, I think you said that that show's come to an end now or something. Like, sort of, how's that whole experience been like taking it on the road and now sort of completing the show as such?
Yeah, it was a funny thing because at the end of that Edinburgh, I was like thinking of my next idea, like the follow up to this show. But after the dust settled on it all, it was a bit like when I am enjoying the show and I can make it even better. And I had so many offers to go to different venues. So it was brilliant to do a tour where I went to different towns and cities and completely different audiences and different reactions. It was brilliant. And like I did Soho Theatre, which for comedians of our generation, it's a real sort of iconic comedy venue right in the centre of London. And I did a couple of nights there as part of the tour, and it was just brilliant. And it was a real sort of bucket list thing, I think, as a comedian to play that because different comedians have different management, PR, marketing. As I probably mentioned last time, I'm just a one man band. I write funny shows. So for me to have this sort of same success or more success with that show than a lot of people who have all that money behind them and industry knowledge behind them, I was very proud of it. And then finally, I feel now ready to write something else, as opposed to I should really write something to keep the momentum. But now it's like I'm excited to write something new. So by taking a year just to like spread the wings of my dinosaurs was really, really cool. Although again, literally this morning I had another offer to do Baby Dinosaur again. So it might not be 100% finished. Who knows?
Oh, so yeah, so
Yeah.
that's exciting. You could be able to see it then, guys, and stuff if you haven't already sort of seen it
Yeah.
and stuff in person. But sort of speaking of then sort of doing new projects and stuff like that, whatever, do you feel like you've learned anything from, I know you've sort of done it quite a while in terms of comedy, stand-up
Mm.
comedy, these sort of shows, but did you learn anything on the journey with Baby Dinosaur that will influence your next project? And do you think it will be similar to what you've done?
Yeah, I think what you're learning is, well, there's all sorts of things you're learning about the industry, but of course, when you're just performing and you're writing your own things, you're basically constantly learning and chipping away and zoning in at what is unique about you, your voice, your view on the world. And Baby Dinosaur really helped me focus in on what's funny about me specifically. So I'm not stood up on stage pretending to be Chris Rock or Ricky Gervais or whatever else that has influenced me down the years. I'm just being Dave Bibby and doing my style. And the more and more I did Baby Dinosaur, I realized that's what people like about me. My improv on stage, doing things differently. Each night, this show will change. And so if I've learned anything, it's just that zoning in on what I'm good at, what people like about me, and that kind of thing. So you always want to bend the rules, do something different, but the knowledge of actually this is what I'm good at, this is my kind of thing, it's been great. And it's a festivals as well are such a great test of that because literally every day is different. I mean, a Tuesday audience at Edinburgh could not be more different to like I did a Saturday night in Newcastle on the tour. You know, it's a completely different vibe, different age backgrounds and things like that. And so you learn every time you do it. Um, but I think as well, the other thing I learned is how much work comes on top of writing a comedy show. Like doing a show and touring it, it's like 10% writing a show and 90% admin and dealing with applications and insurance and the blurb for the website and ticket sales and ticket offers and interviews and things like that. And then eventually you actually get to performing and you remember why you love doing it. But it's a lot of work, I think, that isn't actually doing comedy. It's just like writing blurbs and applications and stuff. So
It's
if I can
quite
get
funny.
someone else to help me, maybe the next time round.
It's actually quite funny because I was watching an interview last night, funny enough, with like a sort of a band and stuff, and they were saying how like 90% and stuff, funny enough, similar not like basically same number as what you said, is like 90% of it is like non-related to the thing you're doing,
Yeah,
music or
yeah,
theatre, whatever. It's all the other stuff like marketing, and now
yeah,
people are making TikToks and stuff if you're in music.
yeah,
So you're kind of becoming comedians, not just
yeah,
sort of musicians. So it's all kind of blending together and you having to do all of this work and stuff. But obviously,
yeah.
that's all, even though you're doing all that, it's all kind of part of the fun in a way, in it? Because obviously, you still get to make a fun project.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you said, there's TikToks and things like that. It's like building your brand and then figure out what your brand is, what people want about you, how you put it across. And even just like booking accommodation. If you're going to go on tour, then you've got to find a place to stay. You realize how much time you spend like looking at crap B&Bs in some seaside town and being like, right, is that a drugs den or a nice place or whatever? Like if I spent that much time writing jokes, I'd have loads more comedy shows, but I spend so much time doing everything else,
Hey, don't insult seaside B&Bs because I live in a seaside town and that keeps our tax going, okay?
There's some good ones. There's definitely some good ones. There's some other ones that not so good, but there's definitely some good ones. But it's just finding them, isn't it?
100%. All jokes aside, I know the truth. I know the reality. I know it very well. Obviously we spoke, you know what I mean, about your baby dinosaur work, and we did speak a lot about that sort of last time, whatever. But sort of talking about sort of new things and stuff like that now that have happened, this is all a catch up and all that. Speaking of new things you've done, you were on
Mhm.
Britain's Got Talent. You did that
Yeah,
sort
yeah,
of like prank right near the end of the auditions and stuff, I
that's
believe. Like,
right.
what happened all there? That must have been so cool.
Yeah, Britain's Got Talent down the years have called me a few times and said, do you want to come on the show? And you'll go straight to the live shows and you do one of your funny songs. And I just feel like my kind of comedy is not really prime time ITV. I can sometimes be a bit surreal, a bit rude, not too rude. I'm not a big swear or anything, but not like the kind of comedy that works for like families that are watching, like young children up to grandparents. It's a very specific type of comedy. Whereas I'm doing like weird shows about dinosaurs. Um, so I've always sort of said, no, it's not for me. But they called me this year and they were like, we've got an idea. Because Ant and Dec are always pranking everybody. They pranked Simon Cowell in LA for their Saturday night takeaway. Simon Cowell wants to get them back, and we think you'd be great at helping out. So and I sort of thought, I don't want to do this, And then I thought, well, why not? It does sound like a right laugh, and it was great. Like I went up to Manchester. It was the Salford Lowry, and I was the last contestant. of the last audition days. They'd done loads at the Palladium, they'd done some at the Lowry, and then they did like loads of people over that final weekend. And then on the Sunday night, I was the last one, and it was just so much fun. The idea was that we were to I was a guy who wanted to break a world record for the most custard pies in the face. It meant so much to me, and I needed someone to throw the custard pie, so I asked Ant and Dec. And then the idea was that the tragedy struck because I didn't get the record because Ant and Dec stepped over the line, they broke the rules, and then therefore I'd be in tears and stuff like that. And then Simon Cowell comes up on stage, and it went really, really well. Like obviously, like it was a major segment on the show. They spent a good 15 minutes on it, which I couldn't believe that they'd done. I think they were. I thought, yeah, it might because sometimes you do these things and they don't even make the edit. Like it just never gets broadcast, so you don't mention it until it happens. But they really went big on it. They're really proud of how it went. I met all the guys, Ant and Dec, and the other judges, and Simon Cowell, and all the crew of ITV. And I don't know why. I think I felt like I almost expected them not to be nice. I don't know why, because looking back, when I was younger, sometimes talent shows were quite harsh, and they
Mm.
were very like they would get people who quite clearly can't sing up on stage and then just laugh at them. Whereas I think we've passed that a bit now, and where I maybe expected them to be a bit harsh, they were just really lovely. The production company were lovely. The producers were nice. I only met Ant and Dec quite briefly because they were trying to keep me away from them so that the secret didn't get let out. But they were just absolutely spot on, just as you'd imagine they would be, and it was a really cool experience. And so many people I've seen this year have mentioned that, like when you look back on your career, like you do different things every year. I've done lots of stuff this year, but 2024 it'll be Britain's Got Talent. That's the year I did that. In 2023, oh, that's the year I did the Baby Dinosaur show. It's the big thing that people remember, and it was a great experience.
And I think it must be cool as well because it's like you're one of the only people you could say where you was on the stage for Britain's Got Talent and you were on there for something different. You weren't
Yeah,
showcasing your talents as such. You were more there to actually like you were basically acting in a way, in it. You know what I mean? It
yeah,
it must have been
exactly.
cool to sort of you must seen some other acts sort of being like, getting ready and
Mm,
all that. And it must have been weird for you to step on that stage and you're like, oh, I'm not here to perform. I'm here to basically
yeah,
do a live play for like 15 minutes. It must have been crazy.
yeah. It was. It was a bit mad, and because of course the character that we'd invented was like a bloke. I called my character Dave because I was like, yeah, I might as well just be Dave. So people like, no, I don't have to really think too hard. Because there was another actor they used as like the world record adjudicator, and he invented a character that wasn't his name, and that's just what worked for him. But I was just like, I'll just be Dave. And then it'll be like Dave Bibby does a prank, so it was better from a branding perspective. But on the day, right? So they were filming two shows on that day. So they had a load of acts in the matinee that came on and did their thing, and then they had a load of acts in the evening show, and different live audiences for each of them. But we all had to be there like early in the morning to register and everything else. And the thing that was really tricky for me is because you get nervous as a performer sometimes, but not in the same way that a bloke who was a baker might get nervous going on the Britain's Got Talent stage because he'd never have done something like that. But for me, it was like, yeah, cool, I'll come and do that. Stand on stage, 1,000 people in the audience, 5 million watching at home. I'm just like excited about that. Whereas a baker would be like bricking it. So I had to kind of put on being nervous, which started to make me feel a bit nervous as well. And because like they film things in a certain order and then they get broadcast in a different order depending on the themes and the stars and the people that come out of it. But I was the last act of the last heat, uh, and that's how it was filmed, and that's how it is then broadcast as well. So I was there all day watching all these other acts and things like that. But I also I had a slight diva moment because I was being hired as an actor, right? And everyone else there is like a singing group. They're normally they're teachers and normal jobs, and they're in a choir or they're a dance group or there's some kids that go to school and they want to be a pop star. And the risk that they take is that they're trying to launch their career or be discovered. Whereas I've already got I'm not famous, but I've got a nice little career. I enjoy what I do. So like I was just being hired as an actor, but it was like you get in this like waiting room with all these magicians and comedians and singers and stuff, and they were like, and the cameras are on the whole time. They can pick up conversations, and they can be like, "So what do you do?" And I had to say, "Well, I'm a baker," and rather than I'm doing a prank on Ant and Dec, because someone would mess it up. They'd go and say, "Oh, you've got the bloke later coming," they'd ruin it. And after a while, I've been in there for a while, and I just said to one of the producers, I said, "I'm so sorry. I can play this character on stage and do everything we need to do, but I can't do it all day backstage, like to all these like, so I'm forgetting who I am." And it's just like talking to all these different people. And they're, "Oh, that's exciting." And then I met like a couple of comedians, and then I was like, "What do you do?" They're like, "I do comedy." I was like, "Oh, you're so brave. I could never do that." And in the end, like, well, the producers were like, "We'll get you a little dressing room," and I ended up in the animal room because they kept a dressing room back for anyone who had dogs or a snake that appears or whatever. And on that particular day, there were no animals, so they put Dave Bibby in the animal dressing room. And then I just sort of sat and had a cup of tea, and I could hear the show going on, and that was a bit more relaxing, because otherwise it was like 10 hours of pretending to be a baker from a little village in Bedfordshire, and it was just like, I can't do it. I can do it on stage, but I can't do this like all day. But it was a good experience. It was just mad, really.
What would have happened in this scenario? Let's say like there was a producer or somebody sort of on the crew, whatever, that didn't know what was going on. And they just go in there, be like, "Oh, let's get so and so's dog out or so and so's like cat out."
Yeah.
They just open the door and it's just you with a bunch of animals. It's this grown man in a baker's outfit. Oh, what are you doing in
Just,
it? So I was told to be in it. It's like, yeah, were you, sir? Yeah.
I bet you were, yeah, animal botherer. Yeah, no, I get the RSPCA. He's nicking the dogs. Yeah, and that was the weird thing because it was a secret. It was only like a few people that knew about it. So even like the lighting guy and the sound guy was miking me up, and he was like, "What's your name?" I was like, "Dave." He was like, "What do you do then?" I was like, "Does he know? Like, does he know I'm doing a prank, or that I'm a comedian, or do I?" So I would just stay in character, and then he'd be like, "Oh." And every now and then, someone would be like, "Oh, you're the prank guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll chat later." But other people were just like stagehands and whatever. They were coming over, and they obviously weren't in on the prank, or that they were just doing their jobs. And so I was trying to constantly like second guessing whether to be honest about who I am or whether to be in character about who I was that day. And it was just like doing my head in.
See, that's what I'd find hard is the standing character part because I know I'd mess it up, or you'd start forgetting like what you'd said. So you'd be like, "Oh, I'm from
Yeah.
Newcastle. I'm in Manchester. I'm in Bedfordshire, innit?" So you're,
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
You're right, sir. Do you know what you're doing?" But no, that's
Exactly.
fantastic.
Yeah. That's why I kept the character, a bloke called Dave, in a village that I like. All the stuff was like, "Where you're from and what do you do?" And we kept it like the village that I was from was the village that my wife, grew up in, and like, uh, so it was just like it was natural to just be like, "Uncle Dave, and I'm from here," and then because if I just said another town, and then someone was like, "Oh, I'm from there. What school did you go to?" I'd be like, "Don't know," because I don't know any of the schools there. So I was able to at least like blag like that area a little bit.
Sort of talking about sort of other work you've done and stuff like that in the meantime. I know you've done some voice actor work actually and
Yeah.
stuff. I know you've done narration work and all that with
Mhm.
adverts and something. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if you've done voice acting work, but like before. But what's that whole experience been like? Sort of instead of just acting on a stage, but having to put all your acting into like your voice.
Yeah, I really love voiceover stuff. I was doing some more last week on a corporate job, and it's funny the way the industry's changed. I used to do a fair amount of going into a studio and then being like, "Carling, available at 5 night," and just use your voice and sell whatever's going. Um, but since the pandemic, of course, all the studios were closed during the pandemic. So, but people were still doing radio adverts and TV adverts that needed voiceovers, and computer games needed actors and whatever else was being developed. So everything was done from home. So I suddenly switched to home studio, and my confidence with that kind of stuff isn't great. Like, I like when there's a sound engineer that just says everything's ready, you just talk into the mic, and I'm like, perfect. So the last few years, I've found it difficult to do as much voiceover as I used to do. But there's been a few things like advert sort of stuff, and there's a company called Real Two who do these app based. They're kind of like stories, and you get like voice notes. from different people, and then you have to sort of respond to them like a choose your own adventure type game. And I love that. In one of them, I was a prisoner uh, um, who was in jail dealing with people that could message me, and I'd send back voice notes. And of course, because you choose your own adventure, like we were recording over the course of a few days, like hundreds and hundreds of different lines and sentences. And it was really it was fun, but it was hard because it was like, wow, didn't I already say something like this? And the director, she'd be like, yeah. But this is if they choose to go down this route and not give you the advice of breaking out of prison and then you sort of end up here, but this other bit hasn't happened. You're like, what? So it was a bit mad, but it is really cool to just like forget everything else and just focus on the voice of a character. So I had one recently for another computer game, which I just a voice test sort of thing, and I really enjoyed like being this like, no, you listen to me. If you're gonna come down here and get it, and I think you can completely reinvent yourself in all these different ways. Which, if you saw me in person, would be like, well, he's not a gangster. He's just a little bloke called Dave. But in the voice, you can tune into that, and it's just so much fun. I've really enjoyed doing it, and if I can get my confidence up to do more at home, because I've been doing studio stuff and doing the odd thing at home, if I can get my confidence up with the technical side of things, then hopefully I can do more voiceover as we go into the new year, next couple of years. Fingers crossed. Yeah.
And I think people also don't appreciate like how like difficult it is. I think some people think, oh, you just speak it to a mic for an hour or something, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
there's so much that goes into it. And like you were saying, you
Yeah.
can like attest to that. There is a lot of work that goes into it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And there's like I did the Labara mobile phone adverts last year. We redid some this year, and I went and did the voiceover for it. And of course, you're trying to keep. So you've got your sound technician who just wants it technically to be good. You've got the director who wants the message to be put across in a certain way. You've then got the agency who are the sort of marketing people who've had the idea for the advert, and they've got ideas about how it should be. And then you've got the client, which is in this instance, it's Labara, but it might just as well be a beer brand or a bookies or the National Lottery or whatever it is. And they've all got different ideas and whatever. And I remember doing that one. It's like, I've got 15 seconds to fit this message in. And of course, the marketing guy was like, well, let's mention this, this, and this. And the client was like, oh, don't forget to say that. And the director was like, if you say all these things, it will sound bad. You physically won't fit. And the engineer's like, you won't be able to say all that in that time. So you end up, a 15-second, and then there's a 30-second version as well. We did it dozens and dozens of times trying to get the right intonation of that. Like you think you just walk into a studio and you go, Labara Mobile is now just $5.99 a month. And they go, perfect. Cheers, Dave. We'll call you again next year. But sometimes it's like, well, let's say that. I think we can fit that line in. Or we can say, in comparison to and then so you try all these different versions before you get there. But I enjoy it. I don't, it sounds like, oh, what a pain in the backside, but I actually just love it. I love sitting in the booth, got my headphones on, and they go, Dave, we're going to try and have a take. This is for the so-and-so market or the online, or this is for the TikTok version. So just come straight in with a bit more energy or speed and pace or whatever. And I love it. It's great. I could do it all day.
And I think that's the thing, you need a passion sort of for it in it, because if you don't and stuff like
Yeah,
that, like you're gonna then find it hard. It's gonna feel like longer days, it's gonna affect your work. So
exactly.
you kind of need that passion for it, don't you?
Yeah, you do. You do. You have to enjoy it. And there's always that slightly crude thing of just like, what's the money? Someone's going to pay me to do some adverts, and you need it. You do need the money, and that's because it's my job. But if you're only doing it for money, it just would be rubbish. I just don't think you'd enjoy it. I don't think the end product would be as good. And when someone gives me an opportunity, I do love just trying to work with someone creative and get the best out of whatever the script is or the idea is. And yeah, it is good fun, and I don't get too tired of it really. I feel very lucky that I get to do these things.
So we've had a bit of a catch up. We've had a speak about the sort of things and stuff like that you've done since we last spoke and stuff. We even spoke a little bit and stuff even about other stuff. You know what I mean? We didn't necessarily specifically cover and just, you know what I mean? We had a catch up. You know what I mean? I'm well over explaining basically what a catch up is and stuff. That's basically what we've had. and stuff. It's been great hearing about sort of your time on Britain's Got Talent and all that sort of thing you had there and your voice acting work and talking sort of a bit more about Baby Dinosaur and all that. But I now want to move on to a special segment and stuff like that of this podcast that I don't have in the original and stuff. And it's basically playing off that whole thing of we're talking about catching up, the whole catch up theme. And we know one big thing that people do when they have a catch up, like when they go see people they haven't seen in a long time, they'll show them like pictures from like their holiday they've had recently or from when they've, took the kids and stuff like that to play or something, and I kind of really wanted to have a segment that was very kind of like connected to that very kind of sort of embraced that kind of vibe and stuff. So, welcome to a new segment that's going to be on the Joining Me Again podcast as an exclusive for this show. And it's a segment called Show Us the Photos Then.
I love that. Excited. Here we go. A brand new feature.
See, and I'm so good at titles. See, like I'm the title master, you know what I mean? Microsoft take notes. But anyway, this whole segment is all about sort of, yeah, basically we're going to be talking about photos and all stuff like that of like sort of related to yourself. But you're not going to be obviously showing me the pictures. Let's just, the way we kind of phrase it is that I already have the pictures and I'm getting you to
Right.
explain the pictures. So I'm going to show you a couple pictures sort of related to yourself. And I want you to basically just talk about them and sort of explain and stuff like what you see.
Lovely. Yeah, great.
Okay, so Dave, explain to us this first image. What's going on here then?
This is Britain's Got Talent. I've got goggles on. I've got overalls, which again, diva moment. I asked the producers to get me overalls. It hadn't crossed their mind, I don't think. It was just like, yeah, we're just going to chuck a load of custard pies at your face. It's like,
I
hand up
thought
my
that I thought that
clothes.
was related to the Baker gimmick. I thought that was all part of it. So you'd asked for the actual dungarees or what the
I'd asked,
jumpsuits.
yeah, I'd asked for some dungarees. They said we're going to have goggles. And initially, when we sort of messed about a rehearsal, there was a snorkel, which we said we could use because it would just be visually funny. But in the end, we just went with the goggles. And let me tell you, um, so we don't want food wastage, and that. So we just want. So what we use in the same when we do this kind of stuff in like pantomimes and that is you use uh, shaving foam. So you don't actually, they're not actually custard pies, are not actually made out of custard, which would be delicious anymore because you don't want food waste. So it's actually just loads and loads of shaving foam, which of course gets in your mouth and your ears and everything else, and does not taste as good as a delicious custard pie. And I was absolutely covered, but there we are.
So when they're thrown and like for people and stuff like that, if you haven't already seen the video, whatever, you're getting thrown with about 40 or so of these. So you're
Yeah,
just getting splattered with all this shaving foam. It's like the world's
exactly.
weirdest Gillette commercial. It's like, what's going on?
Exactly. Yeah. I should have got sponsorship from Gillette, but yeah, there was a lot of it. But it was great fun. It's like we were saying before. Once I've agreed to do it, I sort of thought about it. You have to go all in, and I went all in. I'm shouting at Ant and Dec, "Come on, give it to me!" They're blasting me in the face with these custard pies, and I totally committed to it, and that's why I think it turned out well because it was really good fun. We just accepted that it's not actually that nice to have custard pies thrown at you, but if you're doing it for a good prank or something, just go all in, and it'll be fun, and it was.
Oh, that is. The shaving foam thing is still in my head. I'm like, that's mad. I genuinely thought it was custard. And then moving on to the next image. I will be honest, this is the one that I really want to show off.
Go on.
Dave, what's going on here?
Here we are. Oh man, that was the specific year. That is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs at Rickmansworth, a theatre called Watersmeet. And funnily enough, I've done that show again. So I've worn that costume again. I'm just a little bit fatter and a little bit older. This would have been 2018, I think. 2018. I then did I did as the producer's called Chris Jordan for Jordan Productions. So I did that panto again last Christmas, but in a different theatre and with updated references and songs and things like that. And those people in the background, I'm still on a WhatsApp group with them because they're all football fans. And that was one thing we used to do in between the crazy panto schedule. We'd just watch football because there's loads of football on at Christmas. So we'd like do a show and like you do a scene, come back off, watch a bit of Arsenal Leicester, then you're back on again, and then there's the interval, and there's a bit more football on, and then there's another show later on in the day, and there's a different match. Boxing Day, we do two shows, and there's a load of football on Boxing Day. It was great. But I can't remember what my character was called. I can't
Um,
even remember.
I watched because I watched the video that this is related to. Like to be honest, all I can remember about your character, you say something about being a vegan something. That's
Yes,
all I
I
remember.
remember. Actually, I have remembered the name, and then just noticed it's literally written above me in the photo. Herbie the Huntsman. That's who I was. I was Herbie the vegetarian hunter. Yeah.
That's the like brilliance of Panto though. Like, you know what I mean? It's the wackiness and
Yeah,
it's basically like parody films but in theatre, isn't it? Like it's like
exactly.
what's it like before I know you said a bit about performing Panto, but and sort of the schedule and all that, but like what's it like sort of being on that sort of Panto stage doing that vibe? Because it is a very different theatre experience. It's not like an action like theatre or where
Yeah,
it's very light-hearted, isn't it?
very different. Like you've got they'll ship in hundreds and hundreds of school children, primary school kids that will scream, shout, say he's behind you. And while at the same time you've got families that have got grandparents, older kids, teenagers, people that go to the Panto every year for their whole life. I've got my script here for Cinderella this year with me now. It's literally right next to me. I really must learn the lines. Rehearsal start in 2 weeks. It's just a crazy time of year, and I really do enjoy it. It is one of the hardest like showbiz type jobs because you do like 12, 13 shows a week. It's a lot on your voice, you're dancing. I'm a terrible singer, but I'm doing my best to sing at the back in the chorus sometimes. Um, and it is quite full on. I get through a lot of Costa hot chocolate and pick a mix and sugar and stuff to keep me going, which I probably shouldn't do, but here we are. It's Christmas, isn't it? Yeah, it's just crazy. And I've been known to be hit with custard pies in Panto as well. So who knows what'll happen this year?
Shaving foam or custard? I've got to ask now.
Shaving foam, always
Again,
shaving. But yeah,
what?
man, yeah.
This
When I did,
this
yeah, it's a revelation for you, isn't it, Bailey? Like it is. It's always shaving foam because it looks better as well. And same when you watch TV adverts that have like food stuff. Quite often they'll use cheese that's like made of plastic and stuff like that, or they'll add stuff to make cheese like drip so it's melted so it looks thicker, or ice cream that has they like use. If you're selling like an ice cream, they'll make it twice the size to make it look, like it, and it's everything's always different. It's always yeah. And once when I did Panto and Crawley with Steve McFadden, Phil Mitchell, he was the bad guy. That was a great year, 2016, I think that was. I was in the dairy, it's Jack and the Beanstalk, and they have this sort of dairy scene where I'm constantly getting like custard and milk and stuff churned out at me, and that was all shaving foam as well. But as far as you're concerned, it comes out with buckets that say milk, and there's all this machine that's firing out all this cream, but it's all shaving foam.
moving now on to the last photo and stuff, the holiday photos and stuff, if you will, and stuff.
Here we
What's
go.
going on here? You with Basil Brush, I believe that is. Like, what's the context behind this?
This is Edinburgh 2021. No, when did I do Crazy Cat Laddie? 2019. So there was a show at Edinburgh that was Basil Brush and Friends, and they used to have different like celebrities and comedians come on. And it was the most absurd thing I ever did because they had me on and they had Hugh Bonneville. So he was on the live video link up, and he's like a major celebrity, Downton Abbey, like decades of experience. Everyone knows him. And then, of course, there's me, but if you're a comedy fan, you might know me. But generally, he's like, well, who's this guy? And I went on and I did some of my comedy. I don't wear that hat. That hat's back there. I should wear it more often. I think it's because I had a bad hair day in the wind of Edinburgh. Yeah, and I went and did I got an interview, and then I did a little bit of my sort of comedy stuff as part of the Basil Brush Edinburgh Live experience. It was great fun. I have to say, it was really, really good fun.
Yeah, it must have been like, yeah, really cool. And is it a little jarring working with a puppet? Like, I know that might sound
Yeah.
sort of a bit odd, but is it a bit because it's a person, but it's not a person. You know what I mean? Like, it does
Yeah,
it
like
feel a
where
bit
do you
different?
look? You have to talk to the puppet, not the person underneath the desk.
He's getting underneath like that.
Yeah.
Did,
Right, mate. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I'd love to do a Muppets movie. We're getting to Muppets Christmas Carol time of the year, aren't we? That would be my ultimate dream to do. You know how like Michael Caine just plays it dead straight, and then there's all these Muppets. I'd love to do a Muppet movie where I could play it like serious acting and all the Muppets are just being hilarious. But yeah, it was really great fun, and they're so talented. These puppeteers, like they totally bring these puppets to life. And of course, Basil Brush is a sort of UK legend, really, and it was really exciting to meet him.
Yeah, that must have been sort of really really cool and stuff like that. And like you said, it must have been crazy like being on with like then Hugh Bonneville as well. You're like
Yeah,
oh, you know what I mean? Like this, I didn't expect this one. Like yeah,
yeah. I was
like
like,
you said, it must have been
okay,
crazy.
yeah. It was very surreal. The gap in the sort of showbiz ladder of influence between me and Hugh Bonneville is quite significant. So it was very random that they had the two of us on, but it was a good laugh. You know what? They asked me to do it, and I was like, yeah, why not, mate? I was having a really good year, and it was like in that Edinburgh bubble, everyone knew me because it was going well. But outside of Edinburgh, it would have been like, who is this guy? You know. But at the time, Dave Bibby and Hugh Bonneville made perfect sense.
And obviously they've they did invite me before, but I'm too big time for them now.
Yeah,
You know, like
exactly. Yeah.
my
You
views are
want
too
Bonneville
like
wages, don't you?
yeah. I need at least 100K. You know what I mean, up front as well.
You don't get out of bed for less than 100K, do you?
100%, 100%. That was a really good segment. It was cool to go through all of those photos and learn more about shaving foam. I didn't think that would come
There
up,
you
but
go.
here
That's
we
the
are.
big takeaway from today's podcast, isn't it? That there's food wastage. It's 2024. We don't waste food, but everyone's totally happy to waste shaving foam. Apparently,
Yeah, apparently the best a man can get is not custard. That's what we've learned.
exactly. Don't shave with custard. Uh,
I've been sitting on that joke for like 10 minutes and I'm not even lying. I've been waiting. I'm like,
Smashed
I
it.
need it.
Excellent.
Oh,
I'll
brilliant.
message you if it ever comes up again. If I ever end up doing some custard pie business, I'll be like, mate, they're using shaving foam or what brand it is or anything. I'll keep you posted.
Oh, that is brilliant. That's fantastic. But yeah, sort of that's been a fantastic episode of the first episode of the Joining Me Again podcast. And so, like I said, I'm so creative and I just think of all these different unique names. I don't even know how I originally came up with that name. There's no way you can tell what the origins of that name are. But anyway, this has been a fantastic first episode. It's been great having Dave back sort of in the sphere, in the Joining Me Today podcast sphere. It's been absolutely fantastic. And before we go, Dave, anything you want to shout out? You know, I'm rolling out the red carpet for you. What would you like to
Oh,
shout out?
well, Panto, that's what's next. I mean, I don't care if you come to that. I don't get paid anymore if I sell more tickets, unlike my own personal shows. But yeah, I'm doing Cinderella at the Royal and Derngate Theatre in Northampton, and then the journey starts on the follow up to Baby Dinosaur. So next year, I will hopefully be at the different festivals like Buxton and things like that. So do come and check me out, and then I'll be back on your next podcast called "Oh No, Not This Guy Again," which is where you get me back for a third time.
I like the way we self-deprecated so much. I love as well. I rolled out the red carpet for you to shout out, and you, the first thing you said is, "I don't care if you come."
I don't care if you come. I don't care. The producers will make money if you come to the Panto. I will make money if you come to the Dave Bibby show. So carefully think about where you're going to buy your Bibby tickets.
But in all seriousness, if you can, go check out what this guy is doing and stuff. Go check out his Baby Dinosaur show. If any more shows come up, definitely go check it out. Check out his other stuff. He's got different stuff online. You might see him in an advert and stuff like that. You never know in the future. Check out the Britain's Got Talent clip. We spoke about it a lot today and stuff. We've definitely overdone speaking about shaving foam, but I don't care. It's been fantastic though, talking about all this stuff. It's been another fantastic episode of the show and sort of all of the whole sphere, like all related to the show. You get what I mean and stuff. I'm tired, but anyway, it's been a fantastic first episode, starting out episode of the Joining Me Again podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. See you guys next time. Peace out.